Hello again, we're back on track. I had some issues with running this file before, but I was able to save them in a different spot and get them to work okay. So this is basically where we left off. If we were to run this particular example, Control Enter, create a Swift file of it, you'll see how things are looking so far. The home, when you hover over, because we changed the colors, page 2, page 3, page 4, when you hover over. However, when we click on page 2 or page 3 or page 4, it's not going anywhere. So that's the part that we need to start adding the ActionScript code in for. So we'll close this down. So the first thing we had done in the ActionScript, if we had... Okay, so we're back again. Sorry about that. I lost the connection before. So what we've done right now, as you can see on the left-hand side where the buttons are, I've labeled this particular button over in the Property Inspector as BTN Home, capital H for Home. Likewise for page 2, BTN for Button, page 2, capital P. For page 3, BTN page 3, and for page 4, BTN page 4. The reason for doing this is that way we can actually communicate with these particular buttons. So that way when you do click on page 2, this particular text at for page 2 in the content area will update to saying page 2. Oops. Okay, and then for page 3 it should say page 3, and for page 4 it should say page 4. So to get started, we're going to open up our action script button right there. Okay, so we're at frame 1 of the actions layer. You'll see right here you should import these particular libraries. One of them is the import flash.events.capital E event, and the second one is flash.net.url request. Both of these will be utilized throughout our particular exercise here. So the first thing you see here is the stop, which we put in during the first movie. So that way when we go to play this, it doesn't flip through page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. It simply just stops at the home page. Okay, so then the next thing we need to do is say whatever the first button is, and we've identified this one as button home, BTN home. I keep losing it here. BTN home dot add, lowercase add, capital E for event, capital L for listener. And when you type it in just like that, it'll highlight blue, meaning it's been noticed or recognized. Left parenthesis, quotation, and then click is the actual event that we are listening for. If you to click on your mouse, oops, click, and then the next thing we're going to do is give it an arbitrary name that we're going to create a function of. So I'm going to go to home as my function name. And again, go to home does not exist yet, but I will make one that does exist in just a moment. So just like we listened to the click on the home button, we need to do a BTN page 2, and that information is coming from when I click on page 2 right here. I've identified this as being called BTN page 2. Add event listener for the click event, and I'm going to make up another name. It's going to be called go to page 2. Much like it would be go to products, go to contact us, whatever the actual web page names are going to be. I'm going to copy this because page 3 and page 4 are extremely similar to the page 2. So we'll change this to 3, and at the end of this particular calling, we'll change this to go to a function called page 3. And this one happens to be the name of the button, BTN page 4. And again, we'll create a new function called go to page 4. Alright, so the first function that we are going to create is going to be called go to home, as we see right there. So it's function go to, capital H for home, left parenthesis, and then as you may recall from prior lectures, we need to identify what the actual event is that we are listening for, and as you can see, it's going to be the click event. Okay, so event, and then we are returning nothing at the end of this particular function, so therefore we put the colon void. Make sure you type this in just like that, and then a space, and then an opening curly brace, so the left side curly brace. And when you press the enter key, it automatically puts in the closing curly brace for us as well. Okay? Oops. Okay. I wanted to make sure it was still recording last time I got kicked out. Okay, so inside this particular function, when I click on the home button, I want it to jump to the home label. Now, so you see how the capital H in home is labeled down here in the layers. Okay, so we want it to say go to and stop, left parenthesis, and then home needs to be typed in exactly how we did before. Okay, go to and stop says go to this particular frame, and typically you could put in, for example, go to and stop frame 1, which is what we've done before with our slideshow example. However, in this case, we don't want to nail ourselves down to particular frame numbers, because if you ever want to make a change or extend the number of frames there and there, it becomes fairly cumbersome to update all of your ActionScript code accordingly to wherever they are located inside the frame numbers. This way, by creating a frame label, we can just jump to that particular label. And the order in which the labels are displayed in here is really irrelevant. So if you need to put in, let's say, a page 1.25, for example, with our given example, otherwise known as another button inside of here, you're just going to basically label the particular frame right here and then make the changes from that point forward. Okay, so we're going to click on frame 1 of our actions layer to come back here. So let's create our next function. Function go to, and it's called page 2. Again, we made up that name up here, so we just have to make sure these two match one another. And because we're listening for something, there is an event taking place, and we are not returning any information at the end of it. And the function that we're calling inside of here, the method I should say, is go to and stop, and then we need to tell it where it's going to go to. Well, because we are in the function called page 2, we look at whatever we called the label, capital P for page, and then 2. So however you've labeled it, that's what you basically want to put into there. And then a semicolon to terminate. And again, page 3 and page 4 are very similar to page 2, which makes it easy for us to copy and paste these. Make sure if you do copy and paste that you update all parts of it that are dependent on the pages to change. So this is the function for when we click on page 4, we want it to go to page 4's content. Alright, so if you haven't saved your page at this point, you probably want to save it at this point. And if you would Control Enter to run it, this actually should work for us just fine. The stop function at the very beginning, you'll see, basically makes it so that we don't cycle through all of these pages like we've already discovered. And then when you click on page 2, page 3, and page 4, the content area is updating because it's taking us to those particular frame labels. Pretty exciting, huh? Alright, so there's the stop. Here are the four different buttons. So four different buttons have 4 different event listeners, and then 4 different functions to go through with it. Now let's say you're like, well, this is pretty lame in terms of the content that's being displayed right here. Certainly I could add more content to this particular layer, but even better would be if I were to create myself a movie clip. And a movie clip or another graphic would be ideal to put all the content we want displayed inside of here, and then you go to your library and you drop that particular movie clip onto this content area. So again, when you make a change to any of the buttons, they're always looking the same. You can see the button never changes down into the layers here. It basically is just talking to these particular labels along the way. Okay, so let's say, for example, I've got this movie clip. I'll show you what it looks like here in my library. It's 30 frames worth, and basically it goes from a square or a rectangle to an oval. Okay, that's all the movie clip does. It takes up about that much space. And I want to add it to page 2. Okay, so I'm going to click off. On page 2, which is the content right here, we want to try to separate many things, but in this case it's simply just a movie clip that I need to add to page 2's content. It's probably going to tumble off the screen, so I'd have to make a change to this particular movie clip, but it was something quick to get onto here. If we go back to the home page, you'll see that that rectangle's gone. If we go to page 3, there's nothing there. If we go to page 4, there's nothing there. It's only going to exist when we go to page 2. So let's press Control Enter. Create a Swift file. Here's home. Here's page 3, page 4, much like we said. And then when we get to page 2, the movie clip starts to display. Okay, so the pages don't need to be plain Jane. We can add all the different animations that Flash has to offer into our content area. It's ideal to do it inside of a movie clip because once again, the movie clip takes up one frame inside of your main timeline, but yet this particular movie clip had 30 frames worth of animation. Okay? Alright, so lastly at the bottom here we've got this piece of text, and I would like it to actually launch and open up the Joliet Junior College's webpage in a new browser window when this is running as a website. Okay, so you'll see I've already renamed this particular piece of text to something called link URL page. So I'm going to go back to frame 1 of my actions layer and open up my action script. And I need to be able to listen to when somebody presses on this particular text down here to go to a new web page. Okay, so my memory is pretty short these days. I don't remember what I called this. It was called link URL page. This is what we called that particular piece. Back to frame 1 of the actions layer. So the instance name is called link URL, capital P for page. Oops. Dot add event listener. And this time we certainly could put click like we've been doing before. Also want to introduce you to what you might see in other textbooks or in other videos. We could do the exact same thing by typing in mouse event dot capital CLICK, click. The difference between these is there's nothing different between the two. However, to put click inside of double quotes is a very trendy or shortcut way of doing things. The more natural way or the by the book way is to type out mouse event dot click, capital for click. This showing you this method also maybe introduces to the fact that you can do double click, you can do right click, you can do arrow up, arrow down. So whenever there's a mouse event, I should say, there's going to be a click event of some sort. You could also do a keyboard event, and that's where you would get your up arrows and down arrows and enter keys and whatnot. So both will achieve the exact same thing for this particular exercise. Like above, we've got the add event listener. There's the click event that we are waiting for, and then we tell it what functions we would like it to go to. So that is where we are at now. We would need to create ourselves a function name, and keeping with tradition, I say go to and then page 4. This time we're going to call it go to web page. Okay, terminate that with a semicolon. Where you put the function really is irrelevant as well. I'm just going to tack it on at the bottom. Go to, capital W for web, capital P for page. Uh-oh, guys, I spelled these all wrong. Uh-oh. E-V-T. Hopefully you caught that. If not, that's okay. But we've got them fixed. You have to make sure these say EVT for event, colon event. And same thing for this EVT and then event. And then we are returning nothing with the void, open curly brace, and then the next line. Okay, so the next line of piece of code, or next piece of code, needs to tell it to go to a new web page and how to get there. So the piece that we need to utilize is something called navigate to URL in caps, and then new URL request. You can see it's listed right here, new URL request, left parenthesis, http://www.jjc.edu, end the quotes. And then I'm going to put a comma and then give one more parameter, and it's going to be in quotations because it had told me right here that we're looking for a particular string. So we're going to do the underscore and then the blank to tell it to open up inside of a new window, and then terminate like that. And that's what the code looks like. That is my sick daughter sitting next to me. And just to make sure that our parentheses are lining up correctly, if I did this correctly, I think I put one in the wrong spot here. So this is where this needs to go. So it's http://www.jjc.edu, and then we have to put that inside of the parentheses, and then comma, and then the quotation mark for underscore blank. Okay, so let's do a Control Enter to see what this actually looks like. And in doing so, the page launches open. If we again go to any of these pages, you'll see the different links work here. And then at the very bottom, you'll see that the mouse does not change as you see with the traditional button. But down here, if you actually click on it, it launches into the new web page just like that. Okay. That terminates what we have in terms of creating a website. It's pretty straightforward. It's just a copy and paste of the functions. Once you get one working, you can utilize the same concept to creating the other pages. Nothing about what we've just done here means that you have to do a plain Jane website much like this, but you can utilize this content area to really jazz up your web pages and to use other buttons inside of here. Hope you enjoyed the video.